1340 WJOL presents A Rich Conversation with Rich Rennick. No politics, no controversy. Just the lively art of conversation about interesting people in our world.
As our day continues, remember that no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. Hi, hello, how are you? And welcome to A Rich Conversation. No politics, no controversy, just the lively art of conversation. I'm Rich Rennick. And the person to whom we're going to be talking today, I was going to say had a fascinating career, but that just wouldn't be accurate. It would be more of a fascinating life. His name is Ron Dentinger. He is a writer, he sings, he's a musician, a banquet speaker, a comedian, a philanthropist, and a great cook. Just kidding about the philanthropist and the great cook thing. But Ron Dentinger, I can't thank you enough for being here. What a bunch of stories you have to tell with us. And first of all, the Wisconsin connection. One of your first meaningful jobs was doing what in Milwaukee?
Well, I was in the Milwaukee Police Department, if that's what you're referring to. That was an interesting job, to say the least. Well, I forget how many years I was on there. I think like 4 or 5 years anyway.
And the experiences that you had on the police department were sometimes good and sometimes bad. Let's just focus a little bit on the good things that you experienced.
Well, I delivered 17 babies riding the ambulance, and many's the night that you'd be with somebody coming into the world and also somebody going out, take somebody to the morgue.
Going through an experience like that, at what point, Ron, do you think it was that you decided that you were looking for something more, something different?
I took a job that moved me from Milwaukee to southwestern Wisconsin, actually Dodgeville, Wisconsin. And I wasn't sure if I would like it or not, but it turns out I just loved it. A great place to live.
And what was that job?
Actually, I did the speaking, that was the main thing for me. I was hired to make people laugh. Before
you decided to make people laugh, you ran across a fellow who was another fascinating fellow, Don Quinn. He had a vision, a dream, and you participated in that dream along with him.
Yeah, I sure did. And he had a great big Boeing airplane sitting on the front lawn there, and it was flown in to a little 2,800-foot runway, this great big Boeing airplane, and wheels are wider than the runway. And they flew that thing in, and of course, when it used every inch of the runway, when it first touched down, the runway was on a hill, a slight hill. And as soon as it touched down, they had to reverse the blades on the plane to aid in stopping the airplane, and which it used pretty much all of the runway. And that was a big thing in my life, running into this guy, and actually went to work for him.
And we're talking about the Don Q Inn, hence Don
right.
Quinn, the Don Q Inn. And describe the process of putting that motel together.
Well, we used a lot of things that were salvaged from other things. Even the brick that was used around the building was brick that came from a water tower that stood out in the Dodgeville area. They dismantled that, and he said, I'd like to take the brick, from that water tower. And he did, and from there it went to the brick around the motel, or hotel, actually.
And it's standing today, the Don Q Inn in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. Now, one of the things that you did there, Ron, was you took a special interest in entertaining the guests.
Right. There was, in the lobby, there was a big fireplace, a circular fireplace, and they had barber chairs around there. I think there was like 8 barber chairs around this circular fireplace, and I used to sit there and talk to people, and pretty soon I was telling a joke or two, and then pretty soon that's what people came there for, to hear the jokes and things like that. And the owner of the place noticed that and said, come on over to the lounge and let's do the same thing, but over there in the lounge. And it just all evolved from there.
And Showtime had a contest going on at that time. This would have been in the 70s, my guess would be. Talk about that contest of which you chose to participate.
I ended up being the Wisconsin winner in the Funniest Person in America contest.
So that led you to make a decision. Now, when I mentioned interesting life, you chose to make some decisions. And in today's world, a lot of people are not comfortable making decisions where risk is involved. And you decided to leave what was pretty much a secure position and enter into the banquet circuit.
Yeah. I was lucky. It took off pretty much right away. When you get somewhere, it goes over well, and they would tell others, and it couldn't have gone better.
One guy tried to rob our local bank with a sawed-off shotgun. The dummy sawed off the wrong end. Okay, stole the fire truck. He's arrested by a guy who stole the police car. And a woman called the fire department. She said, "I think we got a fire." They said, "Where?" She said, "In the kitchen." And they said, "No, where are you calling from?" She said, "The front room." They said, "How do we get there?" She said, "Don't you have that big red truck?" And I called the fire department once. I told them my garage is on fire. They said, "Did you try pouring water on it?" And I said, "Yeah." They said, "Well, there's no sense us coming. That's all we do." Dodgeville, Wisconsin. My neighbor locked his keys in the car, had to go get a coat hanger to get his family out. I'm serious. This guy's so dumb, he not only doesn't know anything, he doesn't even suspect anything. Tried to mail a watermelon with food stamps. Here's the beauty. One time I'm out watering my lawn, and my neighbor comes over, he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm rinsing out my hose." He had to leave his dog at the vet overnight. He asked the vet if he could have a loaner. Well, it's a valuable dog, you know. He later sold the dog for $6,000. And, well, it wasn't cash. He traded it for 3 $2,000 cats. But if you want a good laugh, you should have been sitting up here. Roger was telling us about a hunting trip he took, and he said he was up in northern Montana. He had hired a guide who advertised himself as the best guide in the United States, and he said they're out all afternoon. It was starting to get dark, and Roger realized they were lost. He confronted the guide. He said, "Well, how do you have the nerve to advertise yourself as the best guide in the United States?" The guy says, "I am, but I think we're in Canada now." Unfortunately, he said he remembered what he had learned as a mere boy, and that is, if you're lost in the woods, stop right where you are, shoot 3 times in the air, just wait, which he did, and nothing happened. He shot 3 more times, waited some more, still nothing, and he was really getting worried because he was almost out of arrows. He was trying to tell us he used to hunt grizzly bears with nothing but a club, and he said he wasn't afraid either because there were 36 people in the club and they all had guns. Now, picture this. Now, it's a dark, misty night out in the open sea. There's a ship at sail. On the bridge, the captain can make out some lights, and they're on a collision course. The captain sends out an emergency message. "Change your course 10 degrees to the north." The message comes back. "Change your course 10 degrees to the south." Captain gets mad. He sends out a second message. "I am a captain. Change your course 10 degrees to the north." The message comes back. "I don't care. Change your course 10 degrees to the south." Captain's irate. He sends out a third message. "We are a battleship. Change your course 10 degrees to the north." Message comes back. "We are a lighthouse. Change your course." Well, this is a good group we got here. Now I wish I had a better routine for you. guy goes into a tavern. He says, "Who owns the big Doberman Pinscher out in front?" The biggest guy in the tavern stands up. He says, "It's mine. What about it?" The guy says, "I just came in to apologize. My dog just killed your dog." He said, "What kind of dog you got?" The guy said, "I got one of those little Mexican Chihuahuas." He said, "How could your dog kill my dog?" He said, "It's stuck in his throat." I'm not the greatest comedian in the world. I guess I'm number 6. Well, the best one you're going to hear tonight.
The jokes, when you're into comedy, you would collect jokes, and you had quite a library.
Yeah, joke and also joke books. But it gets, it's like anything else. It kind of collections are kind of addicting, and you get something, but you want some more, and like that.
At some point, you had what I think you described as a larger joke collection than Bob Hope.
Somewhere I saw a picture of his library, and mine was bigger, in my opinion. So, but that's how that came out. I'm pretty sure I had a bigger joke library than he did.
And you captured that in a book that you wrote called Downtime. And this book is available on the internet. I have a copy of it here, and I'm just going to pick one arbitrarily here. When my daughter was 16, I bought her a car. It was the only way I could get to use the phone. A collection of some wonderful jokes. What I always enjoyed about you, Ron, is the fact that your comedy routine, it was all clean humor. And it just kind of bespoke of the fact that you don't have to use blue humor to get a laugh. Now, you had the opportunity of being the opening act for quite a few well-known folks.
Yeah, Kenny Rogers, for example, it was an opening act for him. The Everly Brothers, B.J. Thomas. Yeah, I remember backstage before to go on, and I asked him if he could do a certain song. And he said, "I don't know if I can break my voice like I have to." When he went out there, I was then went into the audience, and he said, "Now this one I'm going to do for my opening act and Ron," and he sang, and he broke his voice rather weirdly, and he stopped and didn't finish.
Some wonderful, wonderful memories. Now, Downtime, that's your joke book that you wrote. You also took a crack at a couple of books that Dear Ron. Talk about Dear Ron. This is another book that you authored that is available on the internet. Dear Ron by Ron Dentinger. Describe that one.
It was like Dear Abby, if you remember Dear Abby, but it was Dear Ron.
I have that book also. Dear Ron, I just arbitrarily opened up here to page 68. A reader writes, "Dear Ron, there's a survey that suggests married men are happier than single men, but the survey also suggests single women are happier than married women. What's your take on that?" Signed, B.W. Dear B.W., I suppose that's why married men prefer single women.
So, make myself laugh.
But the idea to come up with something like this, is pretty cool. What do you think was the inspiration behind that?
Well, I always like most people, I like laughing, but what inspired that specifically, I guess I can't say.
Oh, you can say. This is a PG show.
I see. I'll do the jokes.
Okay, alrighty. Another piece of brilliance that you had a hand in is a book called How to Argue with Your Spouse. Mm-hmm. And I'm very proud to say that I had a hand in this, along with Chuck Geekus. So and again, you were the inspiration behind this one, but talk about this one. We had a lot of fun putting this one together.
Well, the majority of the people are married and can relate to that kind of humor, I guess.
And it's gender neutral, so you can take it from any perspective.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here's one. Cutting down your spouse's old flame is a great way to get on the offense. So if you're a man, your opening line would go something like this. I just saw your old boyfriend and had to wonder if Snow White and Dopey might have had a son. That's one to get it started. Or if you're a woman, your opening line might go like this. I heard your old girlfriend is involved in the war on drugs. She works at the airport sniffing luggage. We actually came up with that, didn't we? Huh? All righty, how to argue with your spouse. That one's probably out of print by now, but there you go.
I think they all are.
Yeah, well, we can photocopy it if anybody's interested. Another book that you took the lead on is a fascinating book also called You Like It, I Do It Again.
Oh,
the
boy, yeah.
Dieter Tasso story is told to Ron Dentinger. So you were very clear to make sure that that you were basically recounting the life of Dieter Tasso. Tell us who Dieter Tasso is.
Well, a very unique person. If people are familiar with Wisconsin Dells, that's where I ran into Dieter Tasso. He's a juggler. He used to juggle anything, and that's I got to meet him and know him, and I actually did a little book about his life.
And if you were old enough to watch the Ed Sullivan Show, you would see him frequently on the Ed Sullivan Show. He was the one on the tightrope that would stand on the rope and juggle cups and saucers and land the saucer on his head, followed by the cup, followed by the saucer, followed by the cup, followed by the saucer, and continue to do that for up to, 16 times?
Yeah, it's just amazing that anybody can do such a thing.
And his story is just amazing. It's the life story of a juggler. Starts from his 1934 birth in Germany to New York's Madison Square Garden, the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, Las Vegas Caribbean Cruises, the Crazy Horse Saloon in Paris, 33 years with the Tommy Bartlett Show. A story of one man's 60 years as a variety entertainer. And, of course, the incredible horror that he endured through the Nazi concentration camps.
Yeah. Dieter Tasso.
You like it, I do it again.
Yeah. That's his catchphrase. He'd do something and he'd get applause, and then he'd stop and he'd say, "Oh, you like it? I do it again." And he would do it again. Yeah, good old Dieter Tasso.
And he's in Sarasota enjoying his retirement years.
Yeah, I believe I believe he's there now, yeah.
And there's a book about your life, Laughing All the Way, The Life and Times of a Really Funny Man, by Rose Conrad. And she was so inspired by your life also. She wrote a book and used a lot of input from your friends. What was the feeling like to have somebody chronicle your life in a book?
Well, of course, I was honored, elated. I don't know how many terms I can come up with, but she was so easy to work with, and it was just a series of telephone calls, and pretty soon it became a book.
You're listening to A Rich Conversation. I'm Rich Rennick. My guest today is Ron Dentinger. He's a professional stand-up comedian with over 30 years in the national comedy banquet circuit, and also the author of Downtime, Dear Ron, and How to Argue with Your Spouse. And one of your passions also, Ron, is chimpanzees, to the point that at one point you were thinking of having one become a part of your life.
Yeah, I checked into it. At one time in my life, I owned a monkey, but I was still living in my parents' home, and the monkey got his walking papers eventually. Originally, they were fascinated with it also. I wondered about a chimpanzee, and I had friends they owned a gorilla. Can you imagine? Noah's Ark, Noell''S. Noah's Ark was a book about their life.
Wow. Looking at your career once again and your life, taking the turn it did toward humor, what are the benefits, you think, of laughter You have a philosophy about laughter.
Well, I can just simplify it. It's good. It's good for you. It's good for you health-wise.
And music is also a part of your life. You loved music, and you picked up the keyboard kind of by ear, and you had a couple of favorite songs, and one of them was
Maria Consuelo Arroyo.
Yeah.
Who did that song?
Well, I know you did.
Maria Consuelo Arroyo was born and was raised on the south side of town. With eyes dark as midnight, the face of an angel come down. In softness and beauty, she grew like a rose without thorns. At 15, she married. At 16, her first child was born. And time is a lover. The planter in ripeness that harvests our dreams. And time is a river that sweeps us along in its streams. Time brings us together and forces us surely apart. Time fills life with music, but it's played on the strings of your heart. Maria Consuelo Arroyo. When her man fell in battle, she dropped to her knees. Her children were scattered like feathers that ride on the breeze. She kneels in the darkness, 9 candles she lights every day. And Padre Alfonso remembers their names when he prays. And time's the black angel who brings the long sleep. And time is a shepherd who's keeping a watch on his sheep. So he brings back together the souls that he once tore apart. And he fills life with music, for he still loves the girl in their heart. And time is a lover, the planter in ripeness that harvests your dreams. And time is a river that sweeps us in its streams.
Maria Consuelo Arroyo, the Glazer brothers.
The Glazer brothers. But your version was excellent once again. So we have the multi-talented Ron Dentinger along with us on A Rich Conversation, banquet speaker, stand-up comedian, and you had the honor of submitting jokes and humor to the Reader's Digest. Tell us about that.
Well, actually, they use my humor so often, I became the most quoted person in the Reader's Digest. The editor called me and said, send the material right to her attention, to the editor.
And this was Laughter, the Best Medicine from the Reader's Digest. And so the most quoted. That's a pretty big honor, Ron. That's a pretty big deal.
I agree.
When you were in Dodgeville, you also were a contributor to a column for the Dodgeville Chronicle.
Yeah, it was 4, 5, 6 jokes every week, and they were short jokes.
Not jokes about little people. These were just in...
Rich?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes?
Rich, I'll do the jokes.
Okay. Okay. Now, it's kind of interesting how one event that you were involved with led to another event. And as a result of the Dodgeville Chronicle, Paul Harvey got hold of this.
Yeah, and it was a regular thing at the end. He would tell a joke, and most often it was one of mine. And then he would say, Paul Harvey, good day.
And all of those years of him quoting you never had an opportunity to physically meet him, though, huh?
No. And there was a realtors convention in Las Vegas, and realtors from the Dodgeville area were there, and he was the main speaker. Then he said, and now Dodgeville, Wisconsin's Ron Dentinger says, and here are these people from Dodgeville in the audience, they can't believe what they're hearing. They told me about it when they got back.
What an absolute ride. Out of all of the experiences being a pilot and a comedian and writing jokes, you wrote some jokes and sold some jokes to some pretty prominent people, too.
Well, yeah. Joan Rivers, yeah. And I still have copies of the checks. I sold jokes to Rodney Dangerfield. Got copies of those checks, too.
And Henny Youngman?
Oh, yeah. Those of you who remember Henny Youngman, he was one of a kind.
And I want to close with 2 comments on the serious side. Number one, I believe the world would be a better place today if we had a little more in 3 areas, and they are moderation, toleration, and laughter. Thank you very much.
Ron Dentinger, author, banquet speaker, comedian, and all-round entertainer. I can't thank you enough for being a part of A Rich Conversation.
Well, yeah, and I sure thank you for thinking of me here.
Think about you all the time. Please mark your calendar for 1 week from today for another Rich Conversation. I'm Rich Rennick. No politics, no controversy, just the lively art of conversation. And thank you for making us a part of your day.